So we'll just wait for everyone to come in. How are you doing, Jules? You okay?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, Lauren.
Had a busy day?
Yeah, not too bad. Working in
Yeah.
surgery and then kind of thinking, right, well, I better start thinking about this little thing tonight.
Yeah.
Scared.
You'll be
But
fine. I can see you're still at work. So do you say you live really close to your practice though?
yeah, I live about 100 I say about, it's 143 steps away.
I love that you've counted it like so accurate.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I
I
know
know
that would
exactly.
be the dream, to be honest, like to be that close.
It is good, I have to be honest. And that's one of the reasons why we picked this location. Um,
Hmm.
Lots of other factors as well, but yeah, it is good. It is good.
Yeah,
It's just far
absolutely.
enough away that patients can't kind of knock on your door. Although I do have that every now and
Yeah.
again.
They're like, we know where you live.
Yes, it is. It is honestly, it's a
Oh my
nightmare.
God. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, you gotta go with it, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. Is it quite is it a town that you're in?
Yeah, so we're
Yeah.
kind of on the Wirral, so
Okay.
where where Liverpool is, we're like across the
Yeah.
Mersey, and it's
Okay.
just a town, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
most people, some people probably do know where you live then, do they?
So
Yeah.
yeah, as I'm like doing a dog walk in the morning, people are like, "Morning, Joe,"
Yeah. Like bumping
I'll
into all
brush
your
my hair,
patients.
but yeah.
Oh, I love that. We'll just give it a few minutes for everyone to go. We'll give it another minute or so. I think everyone's just filtering in.
Hi, everyone.
Lots of people coming in. I knew this would be a popular one. She had so much interest when you posted, didn't you? Loads of
Oh,
interest.
you know what? It was just, I expected about 5 or 6 people to be interested, and I did it to kind of save myself a bit of time, and it's just kind of spiraled. But
Yeah.
it's
And I think like,
good that, kind of, we're not going to be the only ones, and, that's what we need. We need more hygiene practices, and so that's what I want. I want the whole world to be full of hygiene practices.
absolutely. And I think it's that thing, isn't it? Like if you were to Google, like opening your own hygiene practice, like there's no information. There's no information out there for people. So it's really amazing that you're giving up your time to go over it with everyone and kind of share your wisdom and your knowledge. So
Oh,
um
we'll
we'll
give
make
it
a
that.
start anyway. I am just basically hosting this evening. So I will let Jules introduce herself because I know she's got a few slides on kind of who she is and what she does. I know most of you have probably come from her Facebook post on the Dental Hygiene and Therapy Network. But we are hosting tonight Ikigai Oral Hygiene Community, and we're going to pop this up on my NSK with Jules's permission, which is very kind of her, just for everyone to watch back. So if you know anyone who's interested, who hasn't been able to join us this evening, because I think we'd had a few messages, Jules, hadn't we, from people that um are kind of stuck at work, which, as we know, happens happens to us
Yeah.
all. Then please do share with them when the link goes up, and we'll pop it on the Ikigai Oral Hygiene Community group on Facebook as well. If anyone's not on there, you can just search us on Facebook to find us. It'll be recorded. It'll probably be up within the next 7 days or so on the website. And we're very pleased to host Jules this evening, should I say. I just think this thing is such an interesting topic. I'm really interested to hear about how you've done it as well, Jules. And if anyone's got any questions, please just pop them in the question box or the chat box kind of as we go, and then Jules will kindly answer them at the end. But I will hand over to you, Jules, to get going.
Sorry. I just wanted to say hello to everybody, and thank you for all your time tonight. As Lauren said before, I was really surprised at the response that silly little Facebook post kind of brought. I was expecting about 5 or 6 people to jump on, so it's amazing that so many people are interested in setting up their own practice. I really do want it to be the norm in a few years' time, where kind of hygienists just work in their own businesses, and we are able to kind of help so many more patients and treat them in the way that kind of we feel is fit. So I just especially wanted to thank Lauren for giving up your evening tonight for me. Thank you.
No
And
problem.
to Siobhan for for sending me a message saying, Julie, would you like a bit of help with that? When she could see that it was all spiraling out of all control. And to Icky Guy as well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. So this little webinar is just about setting up direct access and whether or not it's for you. So my name's Jules Fisher. I'm a dental hygienist. I qualified in 1996, and that is my right GDC number. It is only 4 digits, and it shows exactly how old I am. So this is just a little photograph of the exterior of our little studio, and we're in Wallasey on the Wirral. So about me, so I started my dental journey as a dental nurse in community dental service as a DSA. Now, for those of you who don't know what a DSA is either, dental nurses used to be called dental surgery assistants. And so that was what we were called. I worked in the community dental for about 4 or 5 years, and I worked with a fantastic GDP dentist called Claire. And any of you who knows my story knows that I always credit Claire with bullying me into being a hygienist, because she kept saying to me, you know, Julie, you just get far too excited when people come in with minging mouths. So I don't think that's quite politically correct anymore, but anyway, that was how the story started. So then I applied to do hygiene, and I managed to get on the last 12-month course in the country, which was at the time in Aldershot, for the Royal Army Dental Corps. It's tri-service, so it's Army, Navy and RAF, and if they can't fill the places with military personnel, then they invite the civvies. So this was me on my last day as a dental nurse, and it was like my last day at school, because everyone was signing me dress, and that's what that photograph is. And then these were just 2 of my little favourite patients who came to say goodbye to me on my last day. So yeah, and then this was my first day as a student, looking very prim and proper in my little pod and my school. And then the right-hand picture is us a little bit later on, halfway through our course, feeling a little bit more relaxed now we'd started to see a couple of patients. So as I say, it was only a 12-month course, the last one in the country. The rest had gone to 3 years after that. So I qualified in 1996, and I started work in private practice. So I stayed working in private practice right the way through. I was raising my children, so they're 2 stinky boys now, they're 16 and 19. And then obviously when kind of 2013 came along and direct access was, you know, kind of a thing, I really started to think a little bit more seriously about kind of maybe going it alone and doing it, you know, kind of myself. But I still I wasn't sure how if patients were ready for it, or, you know, kind of even if it was a feasible option for me to do. So again, I just kind of watched like the trailblazers, like obviously Christina Chatfield, and people like practice owners like Catherine Owers, and I was kind of watching them and seeing kind of from afar, seeing kind of how they were being received and how they were managing it. And so then what happened was a really good dentist that I'd worked with for about 20 odd years, she decided to retire. And that kind of started the ball rolling for me in about 2018. So I really started to think then, okay, so I've got about 10 years left in me. and then I was like, well, it's kind of now or never. And my mum always used to say that you only ever regret the things that you don't do. So I really started to kind of think about what I wanted to do. And then finally in 2019, I opened up the dental hygiene studio. So, you know, kind of the famous question is just, where do I start? there's so many different options really, but you know, kind of it's either do you set up, you know, like a private squat, which is what we did here. I don't know why it's called a private squat, by the way. A private squat, for anybody who doesn't know, is a premises that wasn't previously a dental practice. So obviously, like this location that we're in now, which is the studio, used to be a newsagent's of all things. So you can either start from scratch and set up a private squat, or you can, you know, kind of take over an existing practice. There's pros and cons to both. You know, kind of if you set up a private squat, then you've got to do all the groundwork yourself. You're starting off from 0 patients, which is really quite a scary thought. Will patients in the locality even understand what the concept is? You're starting off with 0 reputation as well. Whereas if you take over an existing practice, you know, you've already got your staff in place, your CQC in place, you've got an established patient list, but obviously all of that comes at a premium price. So it is probably a little bit cheaper to set up a private squat. It certainly was in my area. But again, you have to kind of decide what type of practice is it that you want to do. So, you know, is it something that you just want to be a dental hygienist in a 1 surgery practice and just work for yourself? Are you going to employ a dentist or a periodontist? You know, kind of, do you want to kind of go down the specialist route? Do you want to do composite bonding and aesthetics? Are you going to do tooth whitening? And then obviously you've got to pay for all that. So you've got to kind of work out how you're going to achieve that, you know. So are you going to go it alone, or are you going to ask for somebody who will come in and partner with you? Are you going to get a loan? Will you be able to kind of get a loan? So have you got any capital to put down as a deposit so that the bank take you seriously? And who will come? That's the thing. So, you know, why will people come to you? So you've got to kind of set out what kind of practice that you want to be, basically. So the other thing that I think people overlook a lot of the time is how much time and energy have you got to dedicate to it? So my story is, as I say, that, you know, I'd been qualified for a long time. I felt clinically confident, but it does actually get quite lonely in a little practice on your own. So I think for me, you have to have you know, a network of people who are going to support you and in your, you know, in your role of setting up your dream practice. You need to be able to rely on people. So what support do you have? You know, have you got a family, a young family that are, you know, kind of time precious? You know, have you got friends, dental friends who will help you? You know, what is it that you want to achieve? As I say, you know, kind of there's loads of different things that there's loads of different ways that you can kind of go down. So as I say, you know, kind of you might just want to work on your own, but you might want to be like a multi-surgery, multi-service practice. And what experience do you have for all of those things? So for me, I didn't have any business experience whatsoever. I literally qualified from a hygienist, a dental nurse to a hygienist, and all of those years I literally just worked in surgery. I was enjoying the experience, and I was just kind of getting to grips with the actual physical doing of the job. So I decided that I needed to get some startup advice. And so one of the things that I think is really important as well is I'd kind of talked myself out of it a few times. I'd kind of thought, you know what, oh, it's just too hard, you know, like, but I love this quote from Walt Disney, because the only way to get started is to actually start doing it. So it's really important to, yes, mull the ideas over in your head, but then formulate a plan to kind of put one foot in front of the other and start actually making those plans a reality. So I've tried to kind of do a little bit of a timeline to try and kind of help people understand that it literally doesn't happen overnight. So for example, we opened here in August 2019, but it was May 2018 when I first started doing my market research. And as I say, I was looking into the local area, how many practices were there, what was the demand like, where would I place myself in that market. I was securing finance in the back of my head, looking at CQC registration. And then, as I say, I decided that I needed some startup planning for the business itself. So I sought out the charity, actually, which is based in Liverpool, called the Women's Organisation, and they help women set up their own businesses because we're still a minority in the business world. They helped me formulate a business plan and present that to the bank so that we could secure the finance options that were right for us at this practice. And then once I realised that it was a bit of a viable option and I started to get a little bit excited about it, that's when I decided to look at locations and where would be a good place to have a practice. Then obviously we had to kind of get quotes for the works, we designed and planned, and then we had to apply. At the time, we had to apply for a change of use, but I believe since we've opened, you don't have to do that anymore, but you'll have to check in your local area if that's appropriate or not. And then obviously we contacted the GDC and the CQC, told them of our plans, we started construction, we had to get building regs in, then we had to organise the equipment, and once it all started to kind of start to look like a practice, I started getting really excited. And then I started kind of thinking about obviously actually opening. So I started doing the staff interviews and doing like the CQC registration and all of that. And then finally in August 2019, we opened. And it was actually quite a what do you call it, like an anticlimax, really. I'd kind of built up to this day, you know, kind of, and started, and it was just another day in surgery. But it was brilliant, obviously. But so these slides are of our little studio as we bought it. So yeah, it had been a newsagent before we made it into a practice. And as you can see, we took it literally back to the brick. That third picture shows a hole in the wall that leads from our shop to the Morrison's local next door. And what had happened, is a bit of a funny story. So because our practice was empty, it was easier to break into our practice at the back and come through, and then they knocked a big hole in the wall and took all the bricks out because it was easier to break into the next door place. So when we took it over, we walked in and there's a big hole in the wall and there's just some bricks holding up the wall. And I was looking at it and I said to Lauren before, I was like, oh my goodness, isn't this amazing? Isn't it great, love? And my husband looked at me and he just looked at me as if to say, what on earth are you looking at? Are we looking at the same thing? And then obviously this is the studio afterwards. So, you know, kind of, I want to say to people as well that there's no shortcuts. And maybe that's just me, because I'm a bit of a control freak, and there's lots of long hours and there's lots of legwork, you know, but you've got to kind of think about, I know my business now inside out, back to front. I know that, for example, where those tiles behind me that my son put that one on the wall, and you know, kind of the fourth picture of the surgeries, I know exactly where the pipes are and all the equipment is, and so I know my practice and my business inside out, and that wouldn't suit everybody, but yeah, that's just kind of the way I did, and anybody knows me will know I'm a bit of a control freak anyway. So and then it came to the actual doing of it. So we did a little leaflet drop in the local area, and this was our launch day. So we did a party at the practice the night before, and I invited lots of dental friends to come and celebrate with us, and just to make awareness for the local practices as well, to come and have a look and, you know, kind of join in with us. And then we did an open day. So there's lots of ways of marketing your practice. Obviously, you know, these days you have to kind of think about a website and social media and adverts and all of those things. But the party really did kind of put us on the map. So there was lots of interest from outside, people passing, and you know, I mean, what's not to like when you've got cake and fizz? Do you know what I mean? So that was good. It was a really good day, and we had a lot of interest. We did a couple of demonstrations of what we were about, and then that's kind of how we started. So I wanted to put in as well about your team. So obviously this is my lovely team, my lovely ladies, and we call ourselves the Studio Squad. But obviously when I first opened in 2019, it was very, very different. It was literally just me. Obviously your CQC requirements, your GDC, you have to kind of think about your lone working, you have to risk assess, and you have to put, you know, like policies in place. For me, the timing wasn't particularly great because I think we were open for about 5 months and then we had to close because of COVID. That wasn't in my business plan. That didn't go in front of the bank. But, you know, kind of, you have to kind of think about what size of a team that you need. So that's why I always say it's more cost effective if you can do a lot of it yourself, like your website and your social media and your compliance and things like that. But yeah, these are my lovely ladies. So I've got the front there, I've got Trish and April. So Trish and April are my hygienist and therapist. The girl in the middle who's pretty in pink is my full-time dental nurse, Holly. She's like my right-hand man. We're together all the time, bless her, poor Holly. And then behind me is Abby. She's one of my part-time nurses. And the vision in purple at the end is Charlotte, and she's my part-time receptionist. But yeah, your staff team are invaluable, but also they're very, very costly as well. So you have to kind of factor that into your plan, but it's something that you can evaluate as you go. So as you kind of do a little bit better, you can kind of build your team and all of that. And I've put this in kind of, I've nearly finished talking now, but I love this this quote as well, because I think we always kind of think, particularly women in business, I think we always kind of think of the negatives, and not often do we think of, okay, so what if it goes well? And you know, as I said before, you know, you do only ever regret the things that you don't do, I think. So yeah, so that's me. I've finished rambling on now. But I'd just like to say, to follow up as well, I'll send you all a follow-up email with some other details about support services, future webinars or one-to-one guidance, whatever. Because if you're ready to kind of jump in and you've got specific questions, as I say, this is like a tiny little snapshot of the work that's involved, and I could rattle on, well, as you probably realise, I could prattle on for hours about it. I'm dead passionate about it and I love it. But yeah, I'm ready to answer all your questions.
Oh, that was brilliant, Jules. Thank you. That was just what I was about to say before you said it, is you can tell how passionate you are about it. You
Oh,
know,
bless you. I do.
definitely. Jessica is asking, have you got one surgery only?
So actually, Jess, that's a really good thing to think about. So because we bought the building, sorry, I wanted to try and kind of future-proof, because I always knew we were going to be successful, obviously. So I said to my husband, there's no point just do it. We've got the room for two, so we might as well do two. So no, we've actually got two surgeries downstairs. We've got one that I work in and another one at the front, but we also own the 2 floors above as well. So we've got room to kind of grow again, if you like.
Awesome. And Jessica's also asking, what do you do about LA, as in buying it in?
So yeah, so this is a really topical one, isn't it? If you pardon the pun, at the moment. So obviously there's just been the change in the fluoride and the local, but as things stand, my understanding is that there's no change yet. It's got to go through Parliament yet. There's got to be, you know, kind of people that have got to have training as appropriate. So basically what I do to buy it in is I have a dental friend of mine who lets me use his GDC number so that I can buy it in. I have to kind of liaise with him how much I'm buying and all of that. And he helps me with the whitening as well. So yeah, I work under a PGD at the moment. So Benji Blum is your guy if you want to sort out PGDs. He's so helpful. He really helped me kind of set up and gave me the confidence to kind of navigate through that side of things. So yeah, he's your guy.
Awesome. Someone else is asking, kind of for rough startup and building costs.
Oh, now that's like how long is a piece of string, isn't it? You know, kind of. So, it really depends on what you want to build, if you like. So obviously it's such a hard one to answer. I think you need to kind of just have a look at your area. You know, are you going to rent the building? Are you going to buy the building? Are you going to go it alone? You know, kind of, are you going to have an investor? Have you got any money to put in yourself? Are you going to remortgage your house, or are you just going to get a mortgage, or are you going to get a startup loan? Or I think how high end do you want to be? You know, kind of, it's like when you renovate a house, or, you know, kind of put a new kitchen in, you can spend anywhere between 2,000 and 200,000, I'm sure, you know, kind of, it really, and this is what I was saying before about market research. You need to kind of work to your market. So if you're in Knightsbridge, you know, kind of, then you need to be able to kind of play with the big players. If you're in a little kind of one surgery practice in the back of beyond, then, you know, kind of, you can probably do it a bit cheaper. But I would always try and say, keep your costs to an absolute minimum, particularly if you're setting up a private squat, because as I say, that moment when you open that door for the first time, you've got no patience. You know, you're not going to have a patient every day. Even when I first started, there was days when we didn't have patients that day. And that's what I was saying about your staff as well. You've got to try and kind of think, right, okay, what's the most cost-effective way of me seeing these patients safely within, you know, the rules and the regulations, but in a way that's financially viable as well.
In a similar vein, someone's asking, how does the finance work with borrowing? Do you need to have money behind you to do this?
I think, like I said, it depends on who you borrow with. There's all different kinds of investment. Personally, we went to a high street bank it was the NatWest, and they're really good for, I've since found, helping small businesses. But we did have some capital to put against that, because obviously they're not just going to give. I mean, to be fair, dental businesses do tend to have like a green light attached to them, because everybody knows how secure they are. You know, everybody needs a dentist, particularly with the NHS shortfall at the moment. But at the time when I went to the NatWest, because we were the first in the Northwest, it was such a new kind of concept 5 years ago. I mean, even 5 years ago, that, you know, the bank didn't understand what it was like. Well, why are you doing that? So he wanted me to put my money where my mouth is, basically. So me and my husband had to put some money up to show our commitment, and then basically the bank matched that, so that we were able to buy the building and do the startup costs.
There's quite a few questions about dentists. So someone's saying, have you employed any dentists? Would you ever do this, and how would you go about it? If not, how do you get patients treated for anything outside of hygiene and therapy scope? Thank you for the talk.
Oh, thank you. No, it's a pleasure. So yeah, so to be fair, that's something that's always been in the back of my mind, you know, kind of when should I get a dentist in? Should I get a dentist in? Why shouldn't I get a dentist in? Why should I get a dentist in? But for me, our USP in our area is the fact that people know us as the dentist without the dentist. And I've spent the last 5 years kind of keeping things really simple, and literally just kind of concentrating on the hygiene. Because that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I love to spend my time doing. But also, I think keeping it simple, I was able to kind of know in my mind the way that we were going to go as well. For me, I think we're not going to get a dentist in, because it's working really well the way it is at the moment. It's quite seamless. If we've got a patient who presents and they're not registered and it looks like they've got, you know, they could do with some dental treatment, then we try and signpost them to practices in our locality. We've got some dentists that we work quite closely with, actually, who refer their patients across to us, which is something that I never kind of thought about, to be honest. I didn't actually think it was going to work that way. I'm very grateful that it does. So I think for me, we're just going to keep doing what we do at best, and that's kind of treating patients for their hygiene, and referring back to practice if, you know, kind of they need that service, basically.
Awesome. And then following on from that, a few people are asking about kind of a two-parter, so about whitening and about emergency drugs. So how do you get around that without having a dentist on site all the time?
Yeah, okay. So obviously I have got a dentist who comes across to sign the whitening off for me, as I alluded to before. So I've actually got 2 dentists. One comes across, they're both friends of mine, and so they come across to do the full dental checkup to make sure that the patient is a good candidate for whitening, and they see the patient on the fit. So if they've checked their x-rays and they think that there's caries, they won't fit the trays until the patient comes back with either having had the treatment done, or, you know, kind of she'll organise for the patient to go to her practice, and she'll do the treatment there. The drugs kit is becoming more and more of a headache, to be fair. It's one of the biggest expenses as well, and it's like something that you just hope that you'll never have to use. But the drugs kit, basically, people always ask me about midazolam. and adrenaline. So the basic thing about midazolam is I'm not allowed to buy it and I'm not allowed to use it, but it's a CQC requirement, so I have to have it in my drugs kit. So I'm allowed to use it if I'm on the phone to the emergency services and they deem it necessary for me to use it. Or if the patient has some on their person, then I can use their midazolam, not my midazolam, but their midazolam, and I can use it to administer it if that's what the patient needs. Adrenaline, I'm not allowed to buy it, but I can use it if a patient's dying in front of me, which is always good. But again, I've actually got, it's actually a GP locally who facilitates that for me, along with a local pharmacist. So I liaise with them and they facilitate the midazolam and the adrenaline for me.
Awesome. And then so many questions, by the way. So a few questions about X-rays. So do you take X-rays? And also, you know, would you take those for perio diagnosis yourself? Someone's asking.
Yeah, so we didn't for a long time. For the first couple of years, we didn't. Where our location is literally just across the road from an orthodontic practice, actually, who we're really quite friends with. So I used to, if a patient would, you know, needed X-rays for diagnosis, then I would refer them over to the orthodontic practice. That worked really well. He would report on them, and then we could obviously, you know, use them for treatment and whatnot. But then we got our own X-ray machine, so we are able to prescribe them and take them and you know, use the information from them. But again, I get one of my dental friends to write a report on them for me. And that's how it works here. Obviously, also for the whitening as well, we say to the patients, sometimes if they're registered somewhere else and they want the tooth whitening, but they've recently had, say, some bite wings and a checkup, then we just say to them to provide their X-ray. So long as they're within the 2 years, Jenny's happy to do a full dental examination from those X-rays, so long as they've been emailed or they bring a copy of them with them.
Awesome. And so someone's asking then on the back of that, do you offer kind of full perio treatment as well as kind of routine hygiene as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's your bread and butter, you know. So yeah, absolutely. Somebody comes in and they have an assessment. We do guided biofilm therapy here. So it's just the process that we go through. So obviously we do obviously the soft tissue check. We do absolutely everything, you know. And we diagnose and we treat. And if there's patients that we're concerned about, then obviously we refer on, either from, you know, a soft tissue check point of view, or we've got obviously a few different fantastic periodontists in our locality, so we refer to them for help and advice should we need it.
Brilliant. And then a few questions on how did you decide what to charge the patient? And is everybody pay as you go, or do you have a practice plan as well?
Ooh, I like that question. So as I said, market research is one of the biggest things that you will spend so much time doing before you decide to do anything, because you need to look at the local area, you need to see what the other practices are offering, what the appointment times are like, you know, that type of thing. And then you have to kind of work backwards. So you have to kind of look at your costs. So like, how much is your mortgage? How much are your staff issues? How much is, you know, your everything, you know, your bills? And then you have to kind of work that into something that you find feasible. So one of the biggest things for me was I got really frustrated with the whole 15-minute, 20-minute appointments. And that just wasn't working. It doesn't work for anybody, I don't think. I certainly couldn't make it work. So I wanted to have longer appointments. Our appointments generally tend to be about 40 minutes. New patients are 50 minutes. Regular, well-maintained patients can be half an hour. But I would probably say the vast majority of our patients come in for a 40-minute appointment. So you have to kind of work out how that is going to kind of, it depends on your costs, basically. But it's not something that you can say, right, okay, well, I'm going to charge X, Y, Z. It's something that you've got to kind of look at the local market, see what they're charging, see if you want to be competitive with that, you want to be, you know, kind of more cost effective, or you want to be more value for money, or you want to just be the, you know, be the best around. You've got to kind of price yourself into that market, basically.
Brilliant. And then a few people are asking about your equipment. So did you buy your equipment or do you rent some of it?
Well, what I did, because I've got a really good engineer who I'd worked really quite closely with while I was a private practice, because, you know, as you know, like your suction's always packing in and
Yeah.
like stuff like that. So we've always got engineers coming in going, oh, your suction frame, you know, we need to see Kevin. So so I had really quite a good relationship with him. So when I was looking at, you know, kind of setting up, I kind of spoke to him and said, you know, kind of, can you help me with this type of thing? So he kind of signposted me to different options. So you can go from buying secondhand equipment. It can still look really good. Patients actually don't notice, to be fair. It's only us dental people who know whether it's a top of the range chair or not. So long as it goes back and it sits back up again, that's all the patients really care about. So I just wanted to try and keep my costs as low as possible. Because I was starting with 0 patients, I didn't know if it was going to be a success, and I wanted to try and kind of, you know, price myself kind of that way. So I bought our equipment outright, with the view to upgrade and, you know, kind of as we go along, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on what works for you. You know, if you've rented the property, then it might be better to rent the equipment as well. You know, just because I bought it doesn't necessarily mean that would work for you. You need to kind of weigh up all the pros and cons of, you know, kind of your own personal situation.
Awesome. And then a couple of kind of similar questions. So about whether you went into like working full time for yourself or did you work elsewhere alongside? And how long did it take you to build up like a good patient list so that you could be full time in your own practice? The golden question.
They're all really good questions. I love it.
Yeah.
So basically, the way I started the practice is I opened the practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so that patients could just kind of book in when they wanted to. And then I wanted to kind of formulate my working hours around the most popular days and times locally. I still worked in 2 practices alongside that. So I used to do a day in a practice in Chester on a Monday, and I worked down the road, about 3 or 4 miles down the road. On a Tuesday, I contacted both the practice principals. I was completely transparent with them, and I said, look, you know, this is what I want to do, but I don't want to leave, you know. So thankfully for me, I had a really good working relationship with both of those practice principals. And they actually supported me quite well, to be fair. And then, so as I started to build back up, and it got to the point where I couldn't I couldn't continue working 6 days a week, but also I was busier on those days, and I wanted to try and kind of factor in those 2 Mondays, that, you know, the Monday and the Tuesday. Then that's when I decided to leave those practices and concentrate on the patients that I had here.
Brilliant. So someone else is asking about the CQC. So do they guide you on what you are required to have and required to do for inspections?
No. So the CQC, if you ask them, well, no, I can't even say that. I think it's quite a straightforward procedure. Okay, it is, so as I say, you can get somebody who is going to hold your hand and take you through it. It costs for the service, and also it's really quite frustrating because for example, obviously I was here with a blank room and I said to the CQC, you know, what millimeter do I need for this sink, and do I need this, and where shall I put that sink, and what should my flooring look like, and all of that. And it was really quite frustrating because the answer that I always got back was, well, that's for you as a clinician to decide. That's for you as a practice owner to decide. But then, so when I said to them, okay, so if I make the wrong decision, and they were like, yeah, we just won't open you. And I was like, well, that was really frustrating for me, because I was like, look, I've got a blank canvas here. I want to be CQC compliant. I want to have best practice. But basically what they want you to do is show your commitment to your patients by doing all of the research, doing all of the groundwork, doing all of the legwork, all of the long hours researching, so that you know what you're doing. And actually, it was frustrating at the time, but I totally understand why they do it, because it does sort the wheat from the chaff, if you pardon.
Yeah. So now you probably, at the time that was probably frustrating, but now you probably feel like, you know, like you said earlier, like, you know, your practice inside out because you know why the sink has to go there and the pipes have to go there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in a roundabout way, and it is a straightforward procedure, you know, they do kind of guide you along the way. They're not there to trip you up. They're just there to make sure that you are safe and, you know, you are doing, you know, the best that you possibly can for your patients, which is all we ever want to do anyway, isn't it? You know, let's be honest. But I do understand that it is quite frustrating at the time, because you just want to be told this, and this, but actually, you know, you having to spend the legwork and going and finding out all of those. It is it's a bit like a bear hunt. You can't go through, you know, you can't go around it, you can't go under it, you've literally just got to go through it, and you will come out at the other end, but you will also understand your business much, much better.
Brilliant. So a few people are asking, how many years of clinical experience would you recommend having before you go out on your own?
Ooh. See, I don't know. That's a really tricky one, because obviously I qualified back in the dark ages, and you know, obviously it wasn't even something that we had on our radar when we first qualified. You know, we weren't allowed to do anything like that, you know. So I think you younger ones who are coming through now, you know, I think you've got a really good, you kind of hit the ground running, you guys do, you know, and I think you're very prepared for setting up your own practice and being your own responsibility and all of that. So I think for me, I needed to have all of that, you know, kind of experience to be confident in my ability in treating patients in a satellite lone place. Because as I say, it does kind of feel quite lonely sometimes. You know, if you think about your time in a dental practice, usually you've got, you know, other clinicians, you've got your practice principal there, you've got your support staff, you've got your practice manager and your receptionists, and you can kind of, you know, banter off them and all of that. And it can be quite lonely sometimes. But I think, and so for me, I was happy to have made sure that I had all of that clinical experience. But I think once I think it's different for everybody, isn't it? You know, I think I'd probably say maybe 5 years. I don't know, really. I'm just kind of clutching at a number for somebody. But I think if you feel clinically ready, then there's lots of ways to kind of make sure that, you know, you've got somebody to handhold you. You know, you can have like a clinical mentor, you can have like your dental friends who are in the same locality as you, you know, to kind of fall back on. Fabulous forums that we've got, You know, I mean, the reason I wanted to do this webinar is to make sure that, you know, we all do help and support each other. Because, you know, as a profession, you know, sometimes it can be a lot of doom and gloom, and it can be, you know, kind of we're all put upon and all of the rest of it. But actually, you know, it's a really exciting time to qualify and be out there doing it. Excuse me.
Someone else is asking, when you first opened, did you employ a nurse and a receptionist straight away, or did you have to do quite a lot of admin yourself until you became busier?
Yeah. So obviously for me, I opened in the August, and I used almost like a bank of nursing staff. They were all dental nurses who I knew, I'd worked with over the years, who were maybe on not maternity leave because they wouldn't be, you know, registered, but they were all registered nurses who were working part-time, and they didn't mind coming in and filling that morning with me, you know, kind of, because as I say, I didn't have days full of patients. You know, I had initially, like, I think I had 2 patients on a Tuesday, 2 patients on a Friday, you know, so I think I was here all the time, answering the phone, doing all the admin and all of those things. But I used agency nurses. I used you know, what you call it, remote HR sometimes. But I think it's really important to kind of do a lot of the groundwork yourself. I really do.
Yeah. I think again, like it's all going back to, isn't it, what you said earlier about knowing your own business inside out? And again, that's probably something that was made you feel quite busy and stressed at the time, but actually
Yeah,
now you've done
yeah.
it all, you've done every role.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually wrote down one day on the back of like my order book or whatever, all of my responsibilities, you know, kind of, so it was like I was the decon lead, I
Yeah.
was the, you know, like the information governance lead, and you know, like it was like just so I had so
Everything.
many hats to put on, you know. I
Yeah.
still do to a certain degree, but
Yeah.
again, you know, I am a bit of a control freak, so I do
Mm.
kind of, but I have, as I said before, I have got a fantastic team, and they are brilliant, I have to say. And I wouldn't be the success story that we are had it not been for them.
Brilliant. A few people are asking about opening a practice with just one surgery, and do you think that would be financially viable if you just had one surgery?
I mean, yeah, I think it really depends, as I say, on what you want to achieve. So I think if you, like I said before, you know, if you just want to be one hygienist in your surgery and just work for yourself rather than working under, you know, a GDP, then yeah, you know, it's perfectly financially viable. But you've got to kind of understand your numbers, you've got to understand your costs, and you've got to understand all of those other things, you know, kind of, so knowledge is power. You know, you have to kind of have the knowledge, you have to do the groundwork, you have to kind of try and work out, you know, well, okay, well, if I did 20-minute appointments at this amount, how much is that going to bring me? If I do 4-hour-long appointments, what is that going to bring me? And I think it about being financially viable is just all the maths, really. It's boring, it's not very sexy, but you just have to kind of do it, really.
And let me have a little look. Someone's asking about which software and booking system you use.
Okay, yeah. So we use Dentally. For me, it was at the time, it was a little tiny company. That was before it got taken over by Henry Schein. And it was absolutely brilliant. It's really, obviously there's Exact and there's R4 and there's lots of other things, and I've used all of those in private practice, but Dentally, for what we need it for, fits the bill perfectly. There's a really good support system with Dentally. It's kind of quite similar to Exact. I don't know whether kind of, or SOE, depending on what you call it. But I do think finding the right software is quite important, because there's a lot of things that you pay for that you don't actually need as well, kind of because you're just a hygiene-led practice. But I think it does need addressing that we do end up paying for a lot more than we actually use. So I think, eventually, hopefully, a software will come out that's literally for hygiene-led practices.
Dental is cloud-based, isn't it? Is that right? So you can
Yeah, so
kind of
that's
see what,
another fabulous thing,
yeah,
especially during COVID.
yeah.
Could, kind of log on from home. It's not, it doesn't need backing up, and it's fantastic for lots of things. Actually, it is a really good system in my opinion.
Yeah, perfect.
And it integrates with lots of other programs as well. So it integrates with your dental referrals for, your soft tissues and things like that. It also integrates with like follow-up services for patient satisfaction and that type of thing. So yeah, dentally for me is really good. It was quite a bit cheaper as well than SOE and a few of the others, but it's good because you can kind of bolt on things that you need. So for example, you just have the basic package, but then you can bolt on the iPad, or you can bolt on patient portal, or you can bolt on, lots of other things as and when you need them.
Perfect. Someone is saying, I have an opportunity to have a room within a cosmetic aesthetic clinic, which is run by a registered general nurse and nurse prescribers. So already has registration, emergency drugs, etc. Do you think this is something that could be viable?
Yes. Are they CQC registered? Which I'm sure if they're nurse led, then they probably will be. Yeah, I think that is a major bonus. Because yeah, anything that you can do to keep your costs down is a winner chicken dinner.
Awesome. And then someone else asking about, do you need to be a limited company?
Oh, I don't know if you need to be. We are. But I don't think you need to be now. I think that was a choice that we decided would benefit us after we'd liaised with our accountant. But I don't think you have to be. I might be wrong on that though. Don't know.
Okay.
Get an accountant's advice on that.
Yeah. So we've timed it pretty well. We've pretty much just hit an hour. So well done. I suppose we could finish on, have you got like a number one top tip that you could give to people if they're thinking about starting out? Or you could do a couple if you need
Yeah,
to.
I think trust in the process, kind of, it's not hard, it's just a process, kind of. And I think it's really hard to kind of look at the top of the mountain and think, I'm never going to get up there. But if you just focus on each foot and each step, then when you finally kind of think, okay, well, look how far we've got. We've been open for 5 years this year. We've navigated COVID and all of that. So I think, like the Walt Disney thing before, sometimes you've just got to get started. I think you need to always remember why you're doing it. If you need to develop some resilience, because there are going to be tough days, there are going to be setbacks, there are going to be, people who don't want you to succeed. But I think you just need to focus on yourself, keep remembering why you're doing it and why you're passionate about patient care, and research.
Brilliant. Brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Jules, for sharing that with us. I have certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. Thank you for answering all those questions. And I think your email address is obviously on there. And you're happy, are you, for people to send you an email if they're, yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. And obviously, as I say, we will pop this up if anyone wants to watch back on it'll be on my NSK within the next 7 days, hopefully. Just loads of people saying thank you for all your knowledge and your wisdom.
Pleasure. Thank you so much to everybody for giving up their evening, especially to you, Lauren. So I really
No
appreciate
problem.
talking to you.
And like I say, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Ikigai Oral Hygiene as well. If anyone wants to pop any questions on there for Jules as well, you're on there as well, aren't you, Jules? So
Yeah, I am.
we can pass things on as well if need be. But thank you all for coming, and we'll let you get on with your evening. Thank you so much, Jules.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.